Well, hello and welcome back to Algebra 1 class. We are doing another video notes today, and remember, you're going to take these in your note packet. Okay, your packet, you're going to be on page N1-6. Today, we're going to be talking about inequalities. Okay, so pay real close attention, pause when you need to, raise your hand when you have a question.
Okay, so when we start off with inequalities, there's these four symbols that we use. Now, most of y'all know what they are, but previously y'all were taught, back in kindergarten or whenever you started learning about these, to either do Pac-Man or alligator and eat the bigger number. Well, we can't do that anymore in Algebra 1 because you have letters now. So you actually have to know the symbol. So this first symbol right here is the less than symbol. So I'm going to put that with the words less than, which means the symbol next to it has to be the greater than. Okay, the only difference between the last two is that they have the equal to. So this would be a less than or equal to, and this would be a greater than or equal to. Okay, now you have to memorize these symbols. You cannot use the eat the bigger number. One trick that I use with my students, and I've used this for several years, is if you take your left hand and you make an inequality, your left hand makes the less than symbol. Less and left both start with an L. Okay? Now, there is one rule for solving inequalities, and then we're just going to follow what we were doing on yesterday's notes. So, you must flip the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative number. Okay, and what I mean by flip is if we multiply or divide by negative, if it's a greater than, then it becomes a less than. If it's a greater than or equal to, it becomes a less than or equal to. So for this, I am going to show my bars today because I think a few of y'all were struggling on the worksheet, or not the worksheet from yesterday, the computer program from yesterday. And so if you show your work, it helps. So I'm going to just draw a bar down at the inequality. And then I follow what I was doing with two steps. So the first thing you're always going to work with is the constant. To get rid of the constant, I have a plus 2, so I need to get rid of that first. So I'm going to subtract 2. And that leaves me with 3x. When you're subtracting, you do not do anything to the inequality, so less than. And negative 4 and negative 2 make negative 6. Okay, from here, I'm just going to divide by 3. Okay, since I'm dividing by a positive number, I do not flip the inequality. It still stays a less than. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. So my final answer is negative 2. Now, you could plug this back in and check it in your calculator. And if you do 3 times, let me clear my calculator, 3 times negative 2 plus 2, so just plugging it into this side, you're looking for a number that is going to be less than negative 4. So if you pick a number less than negative 2, say like negative 1, that's greater. So negative 3. I get negative 7, and negative 7 is less than negative 4. Okay, for my second example, okay, this says x divided by 6 plus 2. The first thing you're going to work on getting rid of is the constant, the number without the letter. So we're going to subtract 2. That gives me x over 6 is greater than, and negative 1 and negative 2. So when you add, you get negative 3. From here, when you have x divided by 6, to get rid of division, you just have to multiply by 6. Okay, the 6's cancel, and I have x. Since I am multiplying, I did not multiply by a negative. That's a positive number. I leave my inequality alone, and this becomes a negative 18. And that would be my final answer. Okay, now the only thing when you're doing these problems, you have to make sure x is on this side, on the left side. If it's not on the left, your answer won't be correct. So moving on, number 3. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of my constant, negative 2x minus 5. The constant is the minus 5. So we are going to add 5. When I add 5, I get negative 2x. I bring down my less than or equal to, and 19 plus 5 will give me 24. Okay, from here, when you have a negative 2 touching an x, a number and a letter touching means we're multiplying, so the opposite would be to divide. Now, when I divide by negative 2, I'm now dividing by a negative number. So instead of a less than or equal to, I have to flip my sign to a greater than or equal to. This will be x still, because the negative 2's cancel. And 24 divided by negative 2 is negative 12. So you just got to make sure you flip that sign. Okay, for number 4, working on the side with x, I have negative 5, 6x minus 1. The first thing we're going to get rid of is that minus 1 by adding 1. That gives me negative 5, 6x. When you're adding, you do not change your sign, so that just gives me 15. To get rid of a fraction, remember, reciprocal. Okay, we talked about it yesterday on yesterday's notes. So I'm going to just multiply by negative 6/5. Okay. I must show that on both sides. It cancels on this side. Now note, we are multiplying by a negative fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and flip that inequality, and I have x. And now what we're going to do, 15 times, I'm going to open up a fraction, negative 6/5, and I'll get my answer, which is negative 18. Okay, 2 more examples, and then we got it. Okay, from here, you're going to just draw your bars down. Now, when the whole problem is a fraction, this changes your order up a little bit. If everything is with a fraction, you've got to clear the fraction first. So to clear the fraction, you're just going to multiply by the denominator. Since I am multiplying, I look to see if it's positive or negative. Since it's negative, I must flip the inequality, that little rule. So automatically, this becomes a greater than. The negative 2 and the negative 2 on the left side cancel. So I have x plus 11. And then over on the right side, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Okay, from here, to get x by itself, you have a plus 11. So now we just have to get rid of that constant by doing the opposite. So we're going to minus 11. Subtraction does not change your inequality, so keep it a greater than. And 4 minus 11 would give me negative 7. And that would be my answer. Okay, the last example, I really like this one because you'll make a lot of easy mistakes on this one. When you have 6 minus x, note that there is a 1 there. They never write 1. So if you just have a letter, there's always a 1. Okay, first thing you're going to do is get rid of the constant. Well, the constant is 6. So that means we have to subtract 6. Since it's a positive 6, the opposite would be to make it negative. That leaves me with negative 1x. Subtraction does not change my inequality. And 14 minus 6 is 8. From here, I'm just going to divide by negative 1 because you cannot have a negative letter. So since I'm dividing by a negative number, I flip my inequality, and this becomes an x because the negative ones cancel, and 8 divided by negative 1 is negative 8. And that would be my final answer. Okay, so after you finish taking these today, we're not going to do a paper over this today. We'll do a paper over it on Friday. But you should get into your Chromebook and be finishing up your 2 Delta math assignments from the past 2 days if you have not. So if you have any questions, please let one of us know.